Annette Henry is the David Lam Chair in Multicultural Education at the University of British Columbia, and Nour El-Kadri is president of the Canadian Arab Federation. It's good to see you both. Thanks for being here. Annette Henry, maybe I can start with you and helping us understand a little bit of the background behind this story. And these images we've seen of Justin Trudeau, help us understand why they are so hurtful.
Well, they point to a colonial history, and they so in terms of blackface, but also let's just say in thinking of. Okay, let me just say in terms of blackface, it points to a particular time in history, a colonial history, in which blacks were depicted very negatively with negative stereotypes. So here we have him, the photo that you're showing now is him dressed up supposedly as an Arab, let's just say, and it's very much a caricature, and I would think that what's disturbing is that one would expect that he would know better. Yes, he was not Prime Minister at the time, and that is true. And yes, it was 18 years ago, and that is very true too. But I would think we have moved past doing this. That's what's really disturbing.
Okay. Mr. El-Kadri, let me turn to you. You heard the Prime Minister apologize again today, saying it was his layers of privilege that didn't allow him to see at the time that his actions were racist. Do you accept that apology?
It is a little short.
What more would you want him to say?
These types of apologies have to be followed by actions. The Prime Minister have been calling a lot of people. He is preaching to the converted. He has been calling his colleagues in caucus, members of the various racialized communities who are members of parliament, and he is asking them to rally behind him to support. He's not reaching out to the communities that are out there. I mean,
well, he said he spent some time this morning on the telephone talking to community leaders and so on. That's not good enough for you.
It is not good enough for us, because I can tell you one thing. I am the president of the Canadian Arab Federations. We've got 31 member organizations from coast to coast to coast under our umbrella. The Prime Minister have never reached to us. That's one thing. The second thing is that we need action beside that. Mr. Trudeau has been talking a lot about multiculturalism, and for those people who have experienced racism, for those people who have seen bullying on the ground and they see it day in, day out, they just don't want somebody who in the position of Prime Minister just to utter hollow words for them in apology. We have heard the Prime Minister saying hundreds of times that he apologizes and he's sorry, and we have seen him crying in many situations. But in a nutshell, we need actions on the ground to change.
Okay, Annette Henry, what did you think of his apology again today, his further apology? Did it go far enough?
No, apologies necessary and good, but it's easy. That's the easy part. And as our colleague just said, where's the action going to be? What next? Furthermore, we don't know if there's really an understanding of the depth of how race works in this society. That someone, you know, in a privileged position, in a position of power, who doesn't go through each day experiencing racism and doesn't need to really examine institutionalized and systemic racism. So, in a sense, words are easy. I mean, an apology is very, very necessary, but, you know, what is really going to happen, and how are politicians going to be looking at systemic racism in politics and furthermore and further and beyond.
Okay, so when you see this, so how do you think we build on this? If the idea is to move forward, and what's the next thing you would like to see?
We want him to be sending messages for those people who have experienced racism day in, day out, for those people who have been bullied, for those people who have experienced what it looks like to be mocked because of the color of their skin, or because of their accent, or because of any other differentiating factor that a lot of new Canadians face, that the Prime Minister is there to support you. He's not only a figure that he has experienced that he because of his privilege he didn't see it. Mind you,
but do you look at this and say, do you think he's a racist, or do you think this was a racist act and poor judgment?
It was poor judgment for sure. I wouldn't say the Prime Minister is a racist, but the way that he's handling it is necessary in terms of apology, but it's not sufficient because there are a lot of people, when they saw this, they had a picture of Mr. Trudeau, and now they're seeing another face. They see an inherent part of him in terms of having acts that are racist, that will bring memories for those people that have been bullied, that have been marginalized, that have experienced this form of racism. And he himself, he has been going after candidates who have had history of one form or another because of a statement or a tweet or a post on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And they eliminated candidates because of that. For the Prime Minister, he's getting the leeway and he's getting away with that. He has to come to a true discussion with the people that have been affected. Something that is taken at the Arabian Nights, his first call should have been to the Canadian Arab Federation, the representative of Canadian Arabs.
Annette Henry, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I agree. Who did he reach out to first? That's really important. I think hopefully this is a time for all of us as Canadians to really think about and have discussions about. I mean, as an educator myself, definitely in my class this evening we'll be talking about this, and I would hope that teachers in classrooms, whether it's grade 4 or grade 8 or grade 10, would be talking with their students about these issues, because what I find is we have a lot of difficulty in this country talking about racism. We like to pretend it doesn't exist, that it exists in the United States and France and other places. But as many of us know, racism exists in this country, and it's not just individual acts of, sometimes I think people think, well, I'm not a racist. I don't call people names, or I don't do this. Or how do people perpetuate racism in their everyday life? That's, I think, something that we really need to think about in this country.
Right. Do you think that when he says that I didn't see it at the time, it was 2001, how does any of this, do you think, change his ability to lead the country on these kinds of issues? Can he still talk about multiculturalism? Can he still talk about a multicultural Canada and all the change he would hope to make and move the country forward with this hanging over him?
He still can. I think, unfortunately, multiculturalism can be very, very superficial. I'll bring my steel drums and you bring your samosas kind of thing. I think that we have to really look more deeply and look at particular groups in the society, where they are, what are the barriers for particular groups. Mm-hmm. I don't think that work has really been done well. So that's what we need to be doing.
All right, Mr. El-Kadri, let me finish with you. Some have suggested he's no longer fit for office. How do you feel about this? Is this something the Prime Minister, the Liberal leader, can move on from and regain your trust and your faith as a leader? Whether, I'm not saying who you vote for, but as the leader of a country at this point, or is he too damaged by this?
Well, there is no doubt about it that there is some damage to this. There is no mistake that nobody cannot recover from, but you have to do it right and do the right thing. I am speaking to a lot of people today and yesterday about this. The majority of them, they are hurt about it. Some people are saying, okay, well, especially in the Arab Canadian community, say, well, it's just a costume that is used in a party. And these are people probably that haven't experienced any type of bullying or racism. But the ones that have experienced it, they are so offended by what the Prime Minister has done. And the mere words of apology are necessary. They're not sufficient. He has to come to terms that he needs to do something as part of his policies going forward into this campaign. He's going to tackle racism. And he should do this collectively with the people that are affected, not alone Because what he has done today, he has been preaching to the converted. He has been calling members of his caucus.
All right, Annette Henry and Nour El-Kadri, thank you both for your time tonight. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.